set, go.
Okay. Have you ever heard anyone say, that work had better be banned or else I might read it and it'd be very damaging to me? No? No one says this? No. Joseph Henry Jackson made a very good point with that quote right there. He shows that everybody who's censored doesn't necessarily get a choice about it. Most of the time it's parents just going, you can't do that. So with that said, who here has experience with that sort of thing, with censorship? Anybody? Yeah? Yeah, I thought so. Every time your parent says, no, you can't read that book, no, you can't watch that movie, no, you can't read that, go play that video game. Or when you just get on the school computers and try to search up YouTube, or Yahoo, or 4chan, you know, they're all blocked. And, well, the 4chan has good reasons, but I don't see what's on Yahoo Answers that could possibly harm me. And all this is all part of the reason why I think censorship should be less in the United States, because it's unfair against, it's really unfair in schools. It is completely biased against the opinions of kids and for violence and obscenity and things like that. I'll get to that later. And ultimately, it stifles human rights. It just limits human rights. Okay, censorship in legal terms is omission of material from the media. But we all know it as people telling us what to know and what to think. It's just that. It's people censoring things and making us unable to see it for our own protection. Well, sometimes that doesn't go so well in school. There's this one alternate article that I saw about, it's in school in Minnesota. They had a keyword filter on Google, or on their internet providers, so that you can't search up things that have to do with sexual or violent things. Well, it's all great, but you can't search up humpback whales, or Dick Cheney, or the asexual reproduction of mushrooms. And I don't see how that is possibly helping education in schools if you're simply going around censoring everything without any kind of restraint. Let's see. Here's a picture from our own school. They blocked Yahoo Answers. Now, I've said this already, but what is on Yahoo Answers that could possibly harm my education? Is there anything obscene on there? Is there anything pornographic? Is there anything violent? No. It's mostly a forum for people who go on there and share answers for things. Well, this is not the only thing that's blocked. Many of you who are freshmen, next year you're going to be sophomores and you're going to be learning about health in class. It's a fun class. But you'll find that information on STDs and protection, and sexual protection and things like that are all banned in school because they have sexual material in there. And so the school internet providers go, oh, here's one, check off, here's one, check off, here's one, check off. You go on and you try to research for your project that's due in like 2 hours, and you find that it's been blocked. I don't see how this is possibly helpful. I mean, it's just not, it's not right. Well, what allows this to happen is the CIPA, or the Children's Internet Protection Act. And it states that anything that might be harmful towards minors, anything that might stand in the way of education, anything that is obscene or violent, the school has the right to block that from any media that they choose to. Well, it's all very well, but the school decides what is harmful, and not the act. And this gives the school too much power over what goes on, like Yahoo Answers, and it's blocked. Well, let's narrow our perspective a little bit. Violence in the media is something that people have always used to support censorship. They say that, oh, if kids watch violent things or watch people do violent things, then they will be violent themselves. Well, I have proof that this is not true. People usually ignore this kind of things when speaking to you. You see that as soon as violent video games start out, this is from a certain lab that did a study on this. It's .gov, and you see all these video games that came out up until 2004. Victims, crime victims for violence and juvenile murders have gone down like dramatically within the time that video games came out. And in a sense, it makes sense. Would a person that sits around playing Halo for 2 hours, 3 hours every day go out and shoot somebody else? Would somebody that tries to get a certain event in Grand Theft Auto go out and commit violent crimes? No, it doesn't make sense. But that's the logic of people who censors things. And they don't take into account our opinions on what causes stress, what relieves stress. And I like to say that that violence in video games and movies is an outlet for stress, not an inlet for stress. I think that's pretty good anyway. Data collected by the government also showed that from 1995 to 2008, arrests due to violence by kids have gone down 49%, while arrests for juvenile murders have gone down 72.9%, while the popularity of violent video games have quadrupled, which means they have, like, multiplied by 4. And you can see that there's no correlation between violent video games and violent actions. And to top it all off, somebody actually did a survey in several schools and published their findings on the study for adolescent research. And they found that kids, 9 out of 10, more than 9 out of 10, have all decided that violence in video games is an outlet for stress, and that it replaces actual rough and tumble play, like going around punching other people in the face. Well, this is all very contemporary. Some of the greatest harms that censorship can do is deleting history, is to alter the views of generation after generation of people due to censorship. And I will call that information favoritism. Recent example of this is China. China, during the Egypt unrests, they blocked the keyword Egypt from from their nation's top 2 search engines, and you couldn't go on there and search Egypt. It will just come up blank, or it will come up with propaganda that they spin up. Newspapers started to publish views that are directly manipulated by the government. They even said, the government has decided that discussions on Egypt will be banned. The public supports this. They add that little line onto the end of it. The public supports this. Well, I know that what this can do, especially with great and tragic events in history like 9/11. I was there, and I watched the plane flying to 9/11 in China, but it was a 15-minute blurb in the evening news. Nothing else. I mean, that event here cost months of news on how have the people that's responsible for it been catched, and is the government behind this, who did this, why did they do this. News went on for months. In China it was a 15-minute blur because the government decided to censor this information. And it can be used, censorship is used by governments in propaganda. It's used by them to control the people, not to be paranoid or anything, but I mentioned the Egypt unrests earlier, and during the unrest, the Egyptian government had blocked Twitter and Facebook because it might be used to coordinate riots within the country. And it didn't do much because people don't actually go on Facebook and post, "I am going to start a riot," and that doesn't work. But it shows that the government has the power to censor things for their own for their own benefit, as it were. Well, what happens if our government decides to censor information? All in the name of protecting minors from violence, from obscenities. What? This is a picture of a scene from Vietnam. Naked children. Yeah, okay, it's going to be blocked. Okay, Well, Vietnam War was one of the United States' greatest blunders, I think. And if it were blocked for the sake of they claim that it has naked children in it, and that's bad, well, I don't think it should be forgotten just because of this photo. I don't think that it should be blocked from our school because, and we can't research it for our history projects because of this one photo. I don't think that we should forget about things like World War II, about the Holocaust, because they're all inappropriate for us. Well, to wrap up here, censorship is biased against violence. It is biased against kids' opinions. It is unfair in schools. It can cause irreparable damage to anything, to history, when used by the government for their own benefit. And I am protesting the schools' use of censorship. And I'm not asking you to go out and start a riot or something. I'm saying to mention to your teachers about how unfair it is. Maybe drop a good word down at the guidance office when you see your guidance counselor. I've already mentioned it to Dr. Rittenhouse. And I think that this freedom to voice our opinions and let others hear your opinions should never be taken away from us. Thank you.